You've no doubt heard about the ongoing debate over the iPhone of Syed Farook. Farook, along with his wife Tashfeen Malik, killed 14 and injured 22 in a terrorist attack in San Bernardino in December of 2015. In a shootout with the police after the attack, both husband and wife were killed. The police later found Farook's iPhone 5C. In accordance with the FBI's request, Apple granted full access to Farook's iCloud account. However, when the FBI asked Apple to help them decrypt the iPhone, Apple vehemently refused. So, what exactly did the FBI want Apple to do? And why does Apple think it's such a bad idea? And yeah, if you've kept up with the news, you will know that the FBI hired a firm that successfully hacked Farook's phone. But this Apple versus FBI fight is still very much relevant because while the method used to hack Farook's phone only works on an iPhone 5C, the method that the FBI wants Apple to help develop could unlock any model of the iPhone. To understand this whole battle about data encryption, we must first know a thing or two about how encryption works. Data is encrypted by something called a cipher. A cipher is a complex mathematical operation that takes in readable data at one end, then mixes it around in a predetermined way to output gibberish. Here's an example of a simple cipher. The three operations are: switch upper left with middle, switch upper middle with bottom left, then rotate 2 spaces counterclockwise. To undo it, all you need to do is run the math in reverse. So now we have a basic cipher, a rule book, if you will, for encrypting data. But as it stands, this is not enough to keep your data secure, because if someone knew the cipher, they could run it into reverse and decrypt the data. Good digital encryption does something special. It creates a user-specific key that is completely unique and works in tandem with the cipher to encrypt your data. Let's go back to our rulebook example. Those blanks at the bottom of the rulebook are where the user-specific key is inserted, thus adding new, unique changes to the encryption process. Everybody's encryption key is different, and in this way, everybody's data is encrypted differently. And the only way to decrypt the data is to plug in the decryption key and run the process in reverse. The FBI knew what encryption technique is used on the iPhone. It's called Advanced Encryption Standard, or AES, and it's quite popular. However, they don't know the key used to encrypt the phone. And sorry, but guessing it just won't work. The key used to encrypt iPhones is 256 bits long. Because a bit has 2 possibilities, either a 1 or a 0, a 1-bit key would have 2 possibilities. That's the same as 2 to the first. A 2-bit key has 2 times 2, or 4 possibilities, aka 2 to the second. A 16-bit key has 2 to the 16th possibilities. You get the idea. It would take even the fastest supercomputer trillions of years to guess a 256-bit encryption key. But there is still a way to get the encryption key, and it lies in the way that iPhones generate their encryption keys. An iPhone encryption key is made of 2 parts: the passcode to the device and the unique identifier. The passcode part is pretty simple. Whenever you boot up your device, it prompts you to enter your passcode. This passcode is then sent to the encryption hardware inside the phone. However, the unique identifier, or UID, is more complicated. The UID is a tiny piece of silicon built into the encryption hardware of the device. It contains a completely random code, different for every phone. When creating the encryption key, the iPhone will prompt the user for their password, read the UID, then mix the password and the UID together to get the encryption key. Only the encryption hardware has the ability to read the UID, and all the user ever sees is encrypted and decrypted data that enters and exits the encryption hardware area. In plain English, the data from the UID never leaves the padlocked area, and therefore the FBI cannot see it. As previously mentioned, a 256-bit encryption key is impossible to guess, but a standard 4 or 6-digit iPhone passcode is relatively easy to guess. Because of this, the passcode is the weakest link of iPhone security. In fact, if cracking a phone without a UID, the FBI could just copy the contents of the phone onto a supercomputer and have the supercomputer guess all possible password combinations. But the UID stops them because without the supercomputer knowing the UID, it cannot create a full encryption key. It just ends up with a fragment that won't fit in any locks. So any attempt to guess the encryption key would have to be done on the phone. This brings up another big roadblock. Farouk set his phone to delete all data after 10 failed attempts at guessing the passcode. So the FBI couldn't just guess and check. However, the whole self-destruct feature of the iPhone is a software feature, and software is changeable. Before we start talking about software changes, let's review the original game that the FBI would have to play to unlock Farouk's iPhone. To get the data, the FBI must guess the passcode on the original phone, and they only get 10 tries until the thing goes kablooey. Okay, and this is how the FBI wanted to modify the phone to work. Instead of having 10 guesses, the software would allow unlimited guesses, and as a bonus, the entry could be done by a computer instead of by hand. Entering these cheats onto the phone is technically possible. New software can be loaded onto an iPhone in something called Device Firmware Upgrade, or DFU mode. However, there is still yet another hurdle to jump. We can think of loading the hacked version of iOS onto the iPhone's memory like a truck loading its items into a department store. The department store will load the items only if they can be verified to have come from the correct supplier. For example, Macy's would want to make sure that the new clothes were coming from a Macy's factory. Just as the department store needs verification of the correct supplier, the iPhone needs verification that the new software being loaded is indeed from Apple, not from some shady hacker. And this is why the FBI needed Apple. They also asked Apple to help them design the hacked iOS, but that's just a convenience thing. The main thing that they needed from Apple were the firmware signatures, aka the ID cards that verify that the software is legit. Only Apple has possession of them, and without them, FBI OS is useless. So, here we are. Apple could comply with the FBI, yet they do not want to set the precedent of helping the government hack a customer's iPhone, no matter who that customer is. They believe this would undermine consumer confidence in them as a company that champions data privacy and security. And remember, this technique could be used for any iPhone. Farouk's phone is just the first punch. Much more of the so-called crypto wars is yet to come.